Egos and disagreements are commonplace in the world of rock, and they've often led to band members coming and going. So it's no easy feat for a band to keep its stability long enough that its original members stay together for many, many years. Safe to say that bands with original members only are a rare breed. Even the greatest bands in the world have struggled with shuffling members over the years, with some exits leading to feuds that lasted years. Just ask Guns N' Roses. But while members coming and going are considered normal for a band, these 10 groups have managed to weather through every storm to keep it together for the entirety of their careers. Now, there are more than just 10 bands that have never changed members, but in our humble opinion, these are the ones who have established the best legacies with a body of work that stands the test of time, much like their relationships with each other. So without further ado, here are the top 10 bands with original members only. Alter Bridge. Alter Bridge has been around for almost 20 years, and in those 2 decades, the band has maintained their trust and relationship with each other intact. When the post-grunge band Creed went on hiatus in 2003, its instrumental section formed a new band with Miles Kennedy as the singer. Thus, Alter Bridge was formed. Although their first album was reminiscent of Creed's sound, with others even saying that it's just Creed with a new singer, the band expanded their sound in the coming years and cemented an identity of their own. Not to mention, Miles also took up the guitar starting on their sophomore album Blackbird, which helped the band carve a distinctive sound. Alter Bridge brought out the best in its members with sharper, more melodic, and more technical songwriting, something that the former members of Creed may not have achieved in their previous band. But aside from that, it's impressive to see that Alter Bridge's members have stayed together this long. Audioslave. Audioslave may have just lasted less than a decade, but in the few years that they existed, they put out some great songs that are still as solid today as they were back then. Like Alter Bridge, Audioslave formed from the ashes of Rage Against the Machine, with its instrumentalists hiring Soundgarden's Chris Cornell as their singer. But this was no Rage ripoff with Chris Cornell spitting rhymes on the mic. This was a completely new entity that saw instrumentalists Tom Morello, Tim Comerford, and Brad Wilk go for a more traditional hard rock sound than the funk and hip-hop inspired rhythms they used in Rage. Although Morello kept drawing unique sounds from his innovative use of the guitar, as heard in the Helicopter intro for Cochise, Cornell, as always, was in top form with his amazing voice, and the combination of these made Audioslave stand out from its peers. They only lasted 6 years before Cornell left the band and the rhythm section reformed Rage Against the Machine. Nonetheless, they still had an impressive catalog that solidified their legacy as one of the best supergroups to ever exist. Cream. One of the first power trios in rock, Cream was another supergroup that lasted for just a couple years. But in that short span of time, they released 4 albums that contained some of the best rock songs ever conceived. And how could they not when the members are considered legends in their respective instruments? Frontman and bassist Jack Bruce is praised as one of the most influential bassists ever. Ginger Baker's jazz fusion style of drumming was innovative during their time, and of course, Eric Clapton is widely renowned as a guitar god. Although Cream had never had any other members, the tension between Baker and Bruce eventually led to the group's dissolution. Nonetheless, their work and reputation were influential enough to merit them a spot in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rammstein. German band Rammstein accomplished 2 things that no other ordinary band could do. First, they were able to penetrate the Western world and achieve superstardom despite having songs that are sung in their native German tongue. And second, its original members remain together until now, almost 30 years into their careers. Rammstein has a legacy of being one of the more controversial bands out there, but this only adds to their popularity and reputation as a band you had to see to believe. Fans recognize them for their over-the-top theatrical performances that involve lots of pyrotechnics that separate them from other bands. Frontman Till Lindemann even became a licensed pyrotechnician for this sole purpose, which goes to show how dedicated this band is when it comes to their live performances. For 3 decades, Rammstein have never settled for anything less. And while being over the top can be exhausting for others, it certainly isn't for this band, as its members have stayed together through thick and thin. The White Stripes. One of the key bands of the garage rock revival scene, the White Stripes lasted for 14 years before calling it quits. And in that period, its original members stayed together. Of course they would. They're just a brother-sister duo, and the band name is literally built around their last names. For Jack and Meg White, it was never a numbers game, and they managed to release some of the finest garage rock songs of the new millennium. All they needed was a guitar and a drum kit, and they were good to go. They were never limited in what they could do, and their unique setup and sound garnered critical acclaim and popularity. Today, everyone hums along to Seven Nation Army whenever it's played in sporting events. That alone proves the kind of legacy the White Stripes left behind, and they did it with just two of them behind the music. Rage Against the Machine. Anybody thinking that Rage Against the Machine is just Audioslave before Audioslave due to the two bands sharing the same rhythm section is mistaken. Zach De La Rocha never had the pipes that Chris Cornell possessed, and Rage was more than another hard rock alternative hybrid. In fact, when they burst onto the scene in 1992, Rage Against the Machine sounded like no one else. Their mix of hip-hop and funk influences, Tom Morello's alien guitar sounds, and Zach's political rhymes was a wild experiment that resulted in a band with a heavy sound and a politically conscious image. Even today, very few bands sound like anything remotely close to them. Throughout their initial years and later reunions, Rage Against the Machine's original members remained part of the band. They forged such a strong identity that it's hard to imagine Rage with a different vocalist, guitarist, bassist, or drummer. It wouldn't be Rage if someone else replaced one of them. Muse. Since their beginnings in 1994, members of the English rock band Muse have stayed together and established a legacy as one of the most unique alternative rock bands out there. They could sound heavy on one song, then sound trippy on another, and even go down the progressive rock route if they wanted to. The trio has displayed a wide variety of influences to come up with their own style, thanks to the different influences that its members bring to the table. If one of them got replaced, it would just sound different. The original members are Muse, and to trade one of them for someone else is almost as good as forming a new band altogether, especially when they've lasted together all these years. Coldplay. Coldplay is one of the few rock bands that have transcended the genre to become global pop superstars. While many bands fall to the pressures of such fame and grow apart, Coldplay's members have stayed together through it all. These guys have grown together, from their early days in London to the biggest stages worldwide, and as a unit that has held it together for more than 2 decades, few success stories in rock match up to theirs. Sure, they've had moments of tension and doubt about their future, but their bond has always shined through and stayed intact through every obstacle they encountered. Radiohead. It could be argued that Radiohead is probably the most important rock band to gain popularity in the 90s next to Nirvana, but Radiohead remained influential throughout the 2000s as well. The band has put out some of music's all-time best albums, and through it all, they never changed members. Their music may have changed over time, which introduced stylistic innovations that would shape alternative rock as we know it, but the band never needed new members to continue their tendency for experimentation. More than 30 years after they began, Radiohead has managed to keep its original members together. Led Zeppelin. One of rock and roll's all-time greats, Led Zeppelin was active from 1968 until the death of drummer John Bonham in 1980. In those 12 years, the original members stayed with the band, never falling prey to the pressures of fame that came with being the world's biggest rock band during their peak. Together, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham made some of the best music that rock has ever seen. Songs that remain timeless years after being released. Unlike many bands who received the stature they did, Led Zeppelin stayed focused on their goals together, and it was always magic whenever the four of them got together to record music. The band reunited a few times years later, most notably in 2007 with Bonham's son Jason behind the kit in what was a fitting tribute to the legendary drummer. Still, it'll always be the original four who are the definitive lineup of Led Zeppelin. There aren't many bands whose original members stay together, but these top 10 prove that it's not impossible. Not only is it something that can be done, but bands can also forge a strong legacy without anybody from the original lineup leaving.